Behind this nondescript door lies the KEH vault, which contains some of the most rare cameras you will find. And inside, I've got to pick one and review it today.
But I curated everything that went in it.
Wow, I've seen a lot of gold, Larry.
That's the unicorn. That is the 1356 rectilinear Nikon made for NASA.
Right.
They were like 300 or 350 made.
So I can take that and shoot it. No, I don't trust myself with it. No way. So lots of rangefinders.
Yep.
You know, I've never shot a Nikon rangefinder.
They're quirky, but some of their winding is some of the smoothest. That's the Lenny Kravitz drifter with the Stella McCartney finish. Imitation Python. Now, if you want to see one of my personal favorites.
I want to see one of your personal favorites. What?
Mostly because it's about the same age I am. And this is a M3 single stroke, black paint edition. But this is like, I want to say the third batch of blacks. The first two batches are extraordinarily expensive. I mean, this camera retails more than my first house. There's one of the first 12 editions, there were 12 of this one, or at least I've been told there were 12 of this one. I'm going to repeat that. Of the first moon camera. It did not obviously go to the moon because they stayed at the moon, but this is one they were used on training. You want to take the aerial camera?
Yeah, perfect.
It's so light and hand-holdable.
Yeah, I don't think people even notice on the street. It's very discreet. Yeah.
I love the lenses. One of the finest lenses ever made.
I like this. So this is just like a compact little autofocusing point and shoot. I've not shot one of these. Look how small that is. I feel like this would be one where I'm like, oh, I've shot that. You know, you always want to add these things where like, you know what, I've shot that camera. So yeah. I think this would be a good one. I'm like, and say, oh, a Minolta TC1, I've shot one of those.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. I feel, I don't know how you feel, but I feel most safe with this camera, trusting myself to use it. So I think that's what we're going to do. So there it is, I've got it, the Minolta TC1, and I find myself out here in Cabbagetown, Atlanta, Georgia. We're gonna walk around here with some of the KEH crew. Dre, Keith, and Laura joining us today. It should be fun. Always good to have locals to show you the good spots here. And you know what, this is all about the shooting experience today. I'm not gonna like review this camera, although I do wanna explain a lot of the features of it, but really, I just wanna experience the joy of shooting a compact little camera like this in a brand new location. Let's get to it. So we're walking through the pretty famous Krog Street tunnel here. Now, I think we're gonna come back on the way back because I've got APX 100 in here to start with. It is dark in here. f3.5 aperture on this lens means I'm not getting a ton of light, so I might wait till I put some 400 ISO in and try it again. All right, so I'm just gonna camp out here, wait for my shot. The Marta should be coming along the rail here pretty soon, but this is a really intriguing camera. And I know a lot of people are gonna think, well, Chris, you were in the vault, you had your option to play with like old school Alpas and, you know, gold Seagull TLRs and any Leica that you can imagine. But what really intrigued me about this Minolta TC1 is, first off, I had no idea that it existed. And I think this just came out at a time where I wasn't gonna notice it. I mean, in 1996, 1997, I was still a teenager. I wasn't really interested in photography. I wasn't working at the camera store yet. And I guess it just flew under the radar. And when I started getting into photography, I really noticed a lot of more common cameras like the Ricoh GR1V, which I absolutely lusted after, or, you know, the Nikon 28 Ti, like these really stylish premium film cameras. I just never heard about this, and that's too bad, because now that I've got it in my hands, this might be one of the smallest 35mm film cameras I've ever seen. The shutter on this is very sensitive. It's a half press to focus the camera, because this indeed does have autofocus. I'm doing a lot of focus and recompose, but if I push that shutter even just a little bit too hard, it takes a photo. So in a street situation, that's nice. Just got to get used to this so I don't waste any frames. So every time I pull this out of my pocket, I just cannot get over how compact this is. Like shirt pocket, pants pocket, just carrying around a wrist strap. So nice, so convenient. And it's incredibly lightweight, but it feels solid. And that's because this camera is solid titanium. I'm not sure if that's where the T comes from, but you get a titanium shell, which should protect it from like dents and stuff like that. I mean, this is not my camera, so I'm trying to be super careful, more careful than I normally am. But this is like 225 grams with film roll and battery in it. I don't know. Dre, what is that in ounces? Eight's less than 225. That's lightweight. And of course, the camera's not complete without a lens. This has a 28mm f3.5 Minolta G RAW lens. You know, I love 28mm. I mean, Nikon 28 Ti, Ricoh GR1V. This is in good company. And this is an f3.5 lens. So, you know, like a little bit slower than what you'd normally find. But the aperture mechanism on here is so cool. First off, this whole lens assembly just pops out of the body like that. It's so slick. When you turn it off, this titanium cover slides right over. Just awesome. From a design aspect, this is gorgeous. But you also change the aperture with this switch here. And I'm actually finding this very easy to do. Like, it's got really good knurling. It clicks into place really nice from f3.5 to f16. And this is neat. This does not use aperture blades. When you change this mechanism, go through them all, it's actually rotating perfectly round apertures in front of the lens. That's very cool. You do not see that very often at all. I discovered that if you shoot at f3.5 but the exposure is too bright, the TC1 automatically uses the leaf shutter in conjunction with a 7/50th of a second shutter speed to block light to an f13.5 equivalent. You can see here how it changes the bokeh to the shape of the shutter, but it does provide an automatic solution for shooting in bright situations. Now at this point, of course, I don't know what the photos look like. We're gonna have to get this developed, but the reputation of this lens, it is sharp, 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 okay? And actually very resistant to flare, even though of course there's no way that you can put hood or filters on this lens. So I'm excited to see the results. Another cool thing about that perfectly round aperture is we should get really smooth looking bokeh. So I'm eager to see what happens. Color! Yeah, it is time for some color now. You know, the rewind on this took a long time, but it auto loads, auto sets up. I'm ready to go. Oh, I love that. I love it. So clearly space is at a premium on this camera, but it actually has a lot of features here. They primarily do that using two controls. So on the top here, you've got this mode dial, and this is pretty neat. This is a locking switch. You can rotate it freely between all the controls like flash, red eye reduction, self-timer, ISO, focus, manual focus, and exposure compensation. And then to change your settings, well, you use this little switch on the front. And this is basically just a push-pull lever, left or right, but actually it's working really well to adjust things. I thought it'd be a little bit fiddly, but it's actually not bad. I like the fact that I can go into ISO, for example, and set a different ISO speed than my film is. If I want to push or pull, you know, develop at different ISO speeds. Everything like exposure comp is just on half stops, and it's very straightforward and simple. So for a very simple system, this actually gives me a lot of control. Now on the top of the camera, I've got a small little LCD panel, and this is going to give me a lot of my information, like how many shots I've taken so far, and you know, do I have exposure compensation set so I don't forget that. Right below is a little illumination button so I can have some light on that screen if it's dark outside. The viewfinder, it is small, but it's pretty bright. I do love the fact that I'm going to get my focus confirmation, shutter speed listed on the side, as well as a distance scale for either where I focus manually or where the camera is choosing to autofocus. That's really slick. And it's got nice parallax compensation lines as well. I'm actually finding it really nice to use. I even have diopter control on that. Otherwise, I got the on-off button here. I've got spot meter, which I'm going to talk about. And this is all powered by a lithium disposable CR123A battery. So the autofocus experience on this camera is actually quite predictable. It does do your classic point and shoot focus where it's, you know, going to go past the subject in front of it and then lock in place. So I wouldn't call it exactly swift, but it is predictable at least. And I'm finding by focusing and recomposing, this seems to be working pretty well. There is a manual focus option here. It's basically done by zone. So I can go from like infinity, 20 meters, 10 meters, 9, 7, 5, 4. It's not super precise, but you can get down to just below half a meter of focus. And I could see this being really useful if I wanted to work with the 28mm, if I had faster ISO film, or if I'm rocking the flash, close that aperture down tighter to get depth of field, and maybe set the zone focusing to like 3 meters or 2.5 meters and just kind of, shoot from the hip. I could certainly do something like that. Now, speaking of flash, that's also going to be an automatic affair. I mean, this camera basically operates in an aperture priority mode. So I set the aperture here, ISO set, and then the camera's going to do the shutter speed for me based on metering. The flash does have a couple options here. So if I turn the flash on, it's generally going to go to a faster shutter speed. It's kind of, usually give me about like 1/80th of a second, something like that. So I'm not going to get much ambient light in there, but there is an option to do a sort of nighttime flash. And this is going to let the shutter speed go longer. Maybe you could do some shutter dragging and things like that. Or maybe just let a darker environment burn in a little bit, but also get flash in the foreground. So you have that option there. And of course, if you're feeling really nostalgic, I can always push the dial up to red eye reduction flash, and that'll do a pre-flash to blind your subject, daze them and confuse them, make their pupils go a little bit smaller so that when the flash does finally fire, instead of getting big demonic red eyes, you just get tiny pinpoint red eyes, which are maybe scarier. Now, metering on this camera is a pretty simple center-weighted metering system, a little bit more emphasis on whatever's in the middle, but generally averages out the whole scene. And that means that it can be fooled. If I'm shooting something that's like predominantly darker tones, for example, I actually have to underexpose. The camera meter is going to want to overexpose by default, and I have to on purpose bring it back down to where those dark tones should be. And vice versa, if I've got bright tones, something overly bright, the camera is going to want to underexpose, and I got to bring it back up. But there's another cool feature on here. We've got a spot meter on here, which is pretty rare for a little compact point and shoot. And this is unintentional, but it turns out this shirt is the perfect way to test this out. I've got this 18% gray shirt, so you can see here when the center weighted meter is seeing the gray and the black, it's gonna change the exposure a bit because it's factoring in both these tones. But put the center of that meter right here on the gray, use the spot meter, and I'm gonna get an accurate exposure that makes all the tones fall into place. Okay, so this whole time I'm playing with this TC1, Jordan's hearing me mutter under my breath, because you can hear in the headphones as we're walking around. I'm like, I really like this, and like this feels really cool. I love the size, the design. It's comfortable to hold, but I'm like enjoying this camera more and more, and this whole dial on top, I thought it would be kind of confusing and ponderous, but it's actually working quite well. I'm just basically living on the exposure compensation setting so I can easily change that, but going over to flash or changing my autofocus setting or something, like, it's working really well and it's pretty straightforward. Aperture, the only thing I kind of don't like on this camera is the shutter. And what I mean by that is how it displays. So when I'm looking through the viewfinder, I can see a shutter speed representation on the left, but it's not accurate. On top is actually far more accurate. This shutter mechanism on the side, it's kind of going to say something like 30th and 8th, and that means the shutter's somewhere in between. Who knows? If you look at the top thing here, I can see a more accurate idea of what that shutter is. So that's a little bit strange, but again, we're just kind of like pointing and shooting. You get used to it. So fun camera for sure, super fun camera. All right, guys, so we've had a great time here, and I know it feels like we're ending the episode. We're not. I'm still gonna check out Atlanta. We got another day here. We're gonna shoot, but for you at home in the video, yeah, from here, it's gonna be the end of Atlanta. We're really gonna go now to getting the film developed and seeing what the results are, because I need to know, like, was this camera in the KH vault because it's got tons of light leaks or something? We're gonna find out, and I'm gonna speak more about like the results, the exposure, the image quality. I'm excited to find that out. So I'm gonna stay here, but you guys are gonna see me later on, probably back at home in Calgary, sadly. All right, see you there. All right, guys, so this is the best part of the analog experience, and in celebration of that, I'm wearing my darkroom shirt. the best part is getting your films back and seeing what you got, you know, the surprise of seeing how it turned out. And frankly, I didn't know how the shots were going to turn out from this camera. I mean, it wasn't tested. I'd never used it before, who knows? But let's take a look at the photographs here. And the first thing I want to talk about is the lens. Now, as I said earlier, this lens has a reputation for being very sharp, and I'm happy to say that that seems to hold true. Fantastic contrast, fantastic clarity in the shots, and actually the focus did a pretty good job for the most part. There are some minor issues that I have with this camera, and I don't know if it's the specific unit or the model in general, but you do get that really nice distance scale in the viewfinder, but sometimes when I was up close shooting like portrait style or something like that, or really close to things, I would find the distance marker would go to like 4 meters, and I'm clearly way closer than that. So I started to set things manually to about 1/2 meter when shooting up close things like, you know, flowers, details like that, or people up close and stuff. And so I did find a few shots were possibly out of focus because of that little error. At first, I thought the lens was exhibiting a major flare issue, even though the lens reputation would state the opposite. But it turns out that this particular model had a bit of a light leak issue that is simply exacerbated in brighter conditions. Now, in the occasional shots where you can get a little bit closer and shoot at f3.5, you can get a bit of a soft background, and yeah, those round aperture blades do give you very smooth looking bokeh. So overall, I really like the photo quality. The bokeh is nice, the sharpness is good, contrast is good, you know, just gonna watch out for a few quirks, but I really love the look of the negatives out of this. And I shot Agfa APX 100, loved that. Seagull 400, I like the result out of that. Some color there as well, as you saw, and it just does a beautiful job. You know, I just think the Minolta TC1 has the experience that a lot of people are looking for in a prestigious pocket film camera. It's got nice lens, it's got good controls. The metering actually did a really good job throughout. I was happy with it. And there's enough meat there that as a more advanced photographer, I could play and experiment and do cool things. You know, you got the flash in there as well. Everybody loves that, and I like the results out of it. So this was a really fun experience. And I think the TC1 skirts this line of quirkiness and strangeness, but that could either go into a really bad way where the handling's just awful, or into a way that just makes sense and is a fun experience, and it was definitely the latter for me. And I really loved using this camera too, because the TC1 experience reminded me of why I do this job in the first place. I mean, there's lots of great premium, prestigious film cameras out there. You've got the Contax T line, which is popular, the Ricoh GR line, you know, the Nikon 28 and 35 Ti's. There's lots of beautiful cameras out there. What was so fun for me is after so many years in this industry, seeing that TC1 on the shelf at the vault at KH, I had still never seen it before. I just personally never knew about that camera. And so that's a really neat discovery. There's still treasures waiting to be found for all of us, experiences that we just haven't had. And so I really enjoyed exploring with this camera, learning this camera, and found it to be a really cool experience. And I think if I was gonna pick a premium film camera now after using a lot of them in my life, I'd probably put the TC1 very high on my list, but there's lots of cool experiences waiting for you guys to have out there. And of course, I've got to give a big thank you to KH for bringing us down to Atlanta and letting us experience this beautiful city. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Please leave your comments below. Let us know what you think. Do you consider getting a PetaPixel.com membership? It helps us do special projects like this. And you know, if you want to listen to more of what we have to say about the industry and about our experiences shooting a lot of these products, check out the PetaPixel podcast. It's on this exact same channel where you can listen to it on all your favorite podcasting apps. Thanks so much for joining us, guys. We'll see you soon with more on PetaPixel.